Hi, everyone, and welcome to another special roofing contractor Q&A. I'm RC editor Art Eisner, and it is my pleasure to be joined by two roofing industry veterans. First, I'm honored to be joined by editorial director Rick D'Amato, and we would both like to welcome Gregg Wallick, president of Best Roofing in Fort Lauderdale. Hi, Greg.
Hey, guys. Great to see you.
Great to be with you. Greg, there's no shortage of things to talk about with the roofing industry, but I wanted to take a different turn today and honor some of the great father and son stories in the business, which coincides with our Fathers and Sons series in the June issue, now on roofingcontractor.com. Regrettably, Greg, this will be your first Father's Day without your dad, Ed Wallick, who passed away earlier this year. I'm very sorry for your loss. Can you tell us a little bit about what you'll be thinking about this Father's Day?
Well, there comes a time in every person's life where they finish their life. And for my father, he lived a really full life. And he had been on dialysis for quite some time. And the quality of life just wasn't there. And my father made the decision to say, you know what, I'm ready to go to heaven. I'm ready to leave. I've had a good run. And so it was his choice as to how he wanted to go, which was wonderful for the family because it gave us all time to come in and just spend with him before he passed. So it was we're gonna all have this Father's Day, things to say about Ed, which will be great, or grandpa or dad or whoever he was. That he was a boss, he was a dad, he was a husband, he was a friend. He was a lot of different things to people.
Yeah. Well, Greg, if I can, happy Father's Day to you. That's something you and I hold in common. I'm a dad. You're a mega dad. And that like life and has its beginnings and ends and a lot in between. Sometimes just so sweet and sometimes challenging. But my first encounter with Ed, he was a branch manager for Eagle Supply. And before I got into the distribution side of the business, I sort of missed being a competitor to him. I was a supplier to him because we would fix his conveyors and help him keep his trucks going back then. But Ed was, to me, and we didn't encounter each other very much in the early years. It was later when he was a roofing contractor that called on him regularly and got to know him a little better. But in the beginning, he was just one of those people in the industry that was, he was one of these stalwart people. He was with a big company, good company. He had a good position with them, and was just one of those guys troops in the business looked up to. And then he went over to the light side, went away from distribution, bought a little roofing company in Jacksonville called General Roofing. And it's funny, Greg, maybe what was Ed's, not your dad, what was Ed's last name that he bought that company from? Can you remember that?
It was General Roofing and Home Improvements. And that was about 6 months before I got out of school and went to work with him.
Yeah. What was do you remember the fellow's name he bought that business from?
Dewey McLeod.
Dewey McLeod. Oh, yep. My Lord. I had him mixed up with somebody else. Yes, I knew Dewey. Dewey was something of a legend. And I'll promise you, General Roofing and Home Improvement was never the same after Ed Wallick bought it from Dewey McLeod.
Well, I don't know if you know the story behind that, but Dewey was a client of my dad at Eagle Supply at the time.
Yep.
And he came to the counter and he said, Mr. Ed, I need to get out of town fast. The IRS is after me. I need a car and $2,000, and I'll give you my roofing business. And I don't think my dad was really looking to be a contractor, other than he did say, I think contracting looks like a lot more fun than being on the other side of the supply counter. So that's what ended up happening was, like, the next day, my dad gave Dewey McLeod my mom's car, and $2,000 that he borrowed from his mother, and that's how he got into the roofing business.
Well, it was quite a run he had, and I'm sure we're going to talk about it some more. But how did his career path, as unusual as it was, how did his career path set you up on your own roofing journey?
Well, I about 6 months after I got out of school, I went to work with him. I ended up finishing my schooling at the University of Miami. I finished my MBA, and he called me up and he says, I want to come down and talk to you about coming to work with me. And I had never known my father really as a business owner. But he came down and we talked, and I said, what the heck, I'll give it a shot with you, Dad. And I went to work with him in 1979, December of 1979.
Oh,
And
it seems like
I worked with
yesterday.
him. I worked with him for 8 years. And at the end of our 8th year, we had some kind of, different views of the world. And he had his thoughts and I had my thoughts, and he owned the company. So his thoughts had a lot more importance than mine. And I ended up leaving Orlando at the time. That's where we ended up moving General Roofing and Home Improvements to Orlando. And I ended up moving down to South Florida and stopped working with my dad, but had a company. I called it the same name in South Florida, General Roofing. And
Yeah.
and then we actually reconnected at when General Roofing Services, the roll up took place, and he came in and helped me with that company in a great way with our national accounts program and stuff.
Yeah,
So
I still, it was Orlando where I first started, really got to know Ed and a whole lot of his folks. It was just such an amazing run that General Roofing had there in Orlando. You guys did, it amazed me the first day I walked in the door, and they were always real good to me. I was the equipment peddler, and they didn't
Right.
mind that I walked in through the back door just to see what was broken, so maybe I could sell them a new one. But always a great encounter with Ed.
you were the guy who always brought the toys in, Rick. I mean, that's what it was to all of us, the newest roofing toys that we could go out and work with.
It was a job.
Yeah,
Hard.
It was like Christmas when Rick came around, huh?
absolutely.
Well, Greg, just first off, I don't know that there's a more original roofing origin story than that. That is well. Just to close the loop on Dewey McLeod, did he ever come back? I mean, he never came back for his roofing
Okay.
company. Is he still on the run?
This is the story that I heard. Dewey McLeod was headed to Las Vegas, and we never heard from Dewey again. That was it. He just vanished.
I never did either. I was, he was one of our customers at time to time. But no, when he disappeared, he was gone.
Wow. So it's go ahead.
One of the things that's so neat about this industry is it really is a family business industry, and fathers and sons, it just kind of like happens. This is such an intimate business with employees, and kids grow up in the business and they see their fathers working hard. They learn you talk about it all the time. And then sons start working in the business. And a lot of times daughters start working in the business when they're, old enough to start working. And it's a phenomenal industry for family businesses. And, I have 2 of my sons that I've worked with. And one of my sons just 2 years ago, he told me, he said, Dad, I think I want to do my own thing. And I was really thrilled with just how we were able to orchestrate that, because he was a vice president in the company, and orchestrate that transition into his business here in the same market. He was doing different business than we were, but still in Fort Lauderdale.
Right. Certainly a lot of layers, to that. And I do want to touch on on that a little bit more. I am curious. It sounded like, so your father got into the roofing business the strange way that he did. It sounded like the two of you really kind of learned the business in a way together coming up for those 8 years. Is that right?
Oh yeah. Well, here's what we did. He'd sell it and I would build it. And like the first eight years, that was the thing. And my dad, let me tell you, he was the best napkin estimator there ever was. And he kind of prided himself on being able to kind of look at it and say, I think you can get it done for this, and sign a contract. And then it was my job to go estimate it and put it all together. So he was a wild Indian at times. I can tell you that.
Were there some other skills that your father had that you wished you had or emulated along the way?
I wish he was a better estimator, but he was always so positive about, oh, I know you can get that job done for that. That should be easy for you. So there were a lot of like late nights. Dad, you did what? So he was somewhat of a renegade when it came to flying by the seat of your pants, and you could get away with that back in the 70s and 80s.
Got it.
Life was a lot simpler. We didn't have the codes that we do today. There was, basically in the commercial roofing industry, it was 3 plies, 4 plies, or 5 plies. What do you want?
Well, it sounds like if anything, if there was a skill set he had, Ed could certainly sell. Are there some? Is there something you drew from that, or some other skills that you're still using today that you got from him?
Yeah, I'm going to tell you, my dad was the best guy at making friends. He just made friends and connect with people so easily. And he was notorious for just getting people to tell him what the bids were. And then he would just, weasel in there and find a way to kind of make it happen. But he was truly, and Rick, because you knew him, he was a great relationship guy, wasn't he?
Yeah, absolutely. The best. Which is one of the reasons he did so well when he was in the supply side of the business selling contractors. I mean, the contractors loved him. Absolutely.
And another thing that I got from my dad was he wasn't afraid to take a risk with a new product. He wasn't afraid to step out there with new technologies or embrace computers. I mean, I remember when the TRS-80 first Radio Shack computers kind of came out. He went out and bought a couple of them and said, how are we going to use these? I know these things are going to be the future. So he was somewhat of an innovator there. And I learned a lot of that from him.
Gregg, when you started out on your own then, moved back down to South Florida, were you a father already at that point? And when you started your business, did you have the intent to make it a family business?
Oh, I had one son at that time, and he was young, Zachary. And I had the intention of not making it a family business because I had just come from a family business, and my dad and I had, kind of, had our disagreements on how we thought things should be. And so I was sort of against that. But as my sons started growing up, and started like coming in and sweeping the warehouse, and then it'd be a summer, they'd work on a service crew, and then in between, while they were away at school, they came back and would work. And then both of my sons actually tried something right out of college before they came with me, and I think them trying something else and then realizing just how cool it is to have a family business. They came, and Zach was with me for 10 years before he started his own, and Ian's with me right now. And I'm really enjoying just working with him. Yeah, there's nothing like working with your kids.
Other than working child. Oh, go ahead. Pardon me.
Yeah, most of the time I say.
Well, other than being able to get a really cheap guy to sweep the warehouse and while avoiding child labor laws, how has working with your children been beneficial for you and your business?
they're part of the soul of the business, you know. They There's nothing like a founder when it comes to how they protect and preserve their business, and you hope that your kids have that same feeling as you as an owner and a founder do. And so, you know, they I know that my children, and I want to think that my employees all do that too. You know, the people who work here, all the teammates that I have, you know, have the same feeling about the company. But there's something about, like Ian right now, you know, I know he'd fight for us if he had to. There's no doubt about it. He would go to the mat.
Well, everybody in a family situation or in a business situation has their position and their responsibility. How do you separate those when you have a family business?
You got to just be true to yourself and true to them, because the worst thing you could ever do with a family member in a family business is put them into a position that they're maybe not capable of handling. So, you know, you have to be a really good talent arranger, talent identifier, and be able to put them into a place that they're going to be able to be successful at, and not put them into a situation which would be over their head and cause them to possibly not be successful at it.
Well, you just really answered my next question, which what kind of advice and counsel would you give other contractors in a similar situation? Great advice, Greg.
Yeah, you know, if there's one thing that I've learned is I made my kids like earn from the bottom up. I actually, you know, I made them pay a bigger price than I would somebody else. They had to really just earn their way up through the organization, and that's what happened. I mean, my kids, they worked on the roof even after they got out of college, and then they drove trucks. They worked on service crews, but I really wanted to teach them the business from the trade side. And they thank me to this day. They're saying, Dad, I just know the business so well because I learned it, you know, the right way. And that was watching how, if we're going to be roofing contractors, I really need to know what roofing contracting is and how you put a roof together to be a, you know, a true professional.
Exactly. All right.
Greg, I wanted to follow up on what you mentioned, that you know, both your sons tried doing something else first. Was that also kind of a conscious decision on their part, or was it also from the you know, from your perspective to say, you know what, you should separate yourself first, or maybe go try roofing somewhere else first, you know, before, or did that just kind of happen organically?
It happened organic. Well, the first son, Zach, it was a conscientious, I think you should work someplace else before you want to come here. And he really he wasn't like really keen on the roofing business at first, because he thought of the roofing business as like, I'm on the roof, I'm working, I'm doing tear-offs. That's the roofing business. And so he kind of like had this like attitude that, oh my God, the roofing business is just, it's really hard and it's hard work and all of this. And I'd said to him, I said, look, you worked in the field, you saw it from a different side. There's a business side of the roofing industry that is just awesome. But it took him working someplace else before he kind of recognized that. And he came back to me and he says, Dad, you want to tell me about that business side of the roofing business again? He said, I think I might want to come talk with you. And I said, that'd be great. You know, it was kind of like the story of the prodigal son when he came back. So that was it. It was Zach. Now, Ian was a little bit different. Ian, he wanted to go out to Colorado and get into horticulture, if you know what I mean. And he worked on a farm out in Colorado for about a year before he decided to come back to Florida.
Got it. Well, you'll be talking more about this dynamic and how you and your sons navigated all these challenges in the business at this year's Best of Success in Dallas in September. I was curious if you could give everybody out there just kind of a snapshot of what they can expect from that conversation. And is this something you guys talk about a lot together?
You know, we do today. 2 years ago when Zachary made the decision that he wanted to start his own business, it was like, whoa, that's a real gut check, because he was a vice president in the company. He headed up all of our sales, and he just wasn't happy. He wasn't happy being a vice president, and he just felt like, Dad, you can't tell me when you want to get out of the business, but I want to have my own business and I want to run it from the top. And he said, that's what I'd like to do. So we spent the next couple of months, how are we going to navigate through this? And it's how do you navigate through a challenging situation like that and then still maintain relationship and not let it come between what a father and a son really are, and that's two people who love themselves unconditionally.
Right.
And then how does that affect other people in the family that are also in the business? So I can tell you this, it's complicated.
Indeed. Well, I'm certainly looking forward to hearing more about that presentation. In the meantime, where can everybody find out more about Best Roofing?
Our website, bestroofing.net. We've got all the social media, sites covered with all kinds of fun stuff that we put out on a regular basis. So, I just want to thank Roofing Contractor Magazine for what you guys do for the industry, and you're like the people magazine of roofing, and we love it, and always look forward to seeing what you and Rick and Jill and everybody does. So thank you.
Appreciate that very much, Greg. Thank you as always. I really appreciate the conversation and the tribute to your father, Ed. Happy Father's Day to you. Rick, happy Father's Day to you. And as always, I appreciate you joining the fun. I'm looking forward to seeing you guys both in Dallas in September. And that goes to all of you out there as well. Thank you for joining us and taking the time to spend with us, whether you're watching on video or listening on our podcast. For more content like this, please be sure to sign up for our free e-newsletter and subscribe to RC's new and improved e-magazine. It's all free while you're here at roofingcontractor.com. Stay safe, everyone, and happy Father's Day.
Hey!